Daniel Sports Center, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the 2022 College Football Playoff National Championship matchup between the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Georgia Bulldogs. Both teams have had quite a journey getting to this point. You got Alabama, of course, the number one overall seed in the College Football Playoff. They're facing off against Georgia, who is the most dominant team in the nation heading into the postseason, where they lost to Alabama. This team lost to the Crimson Tide in the SEC title game. That's the one game that Georgia slipped up in this college football season. In Alabama, they're the one team that has been able to beat Georgia. Otherwise, the Bulldogs have been unstoppable down the stretch. Going to be quite a game here coming up here in the national championship in a rematch of the SEC title game. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting out with your team trends. Alabama beat Cincinnati in the College Football Playoff semifinal game, beat them 27-6. Huge win for the Crimson Tide. And Cincinnati, that's a good football team. I mean, they're an excellent, very talented football team, and Alabama shut them down and got the huge win there, 27-6, and they're 13-1 heading into this matchup. And obviously, because they knocked off Georgia in the SEC championship, they got up to that number one seed for the College Football Playoff. Georgia did fall to number 3, just behind Michigan, but they knocked off Michigan in their College Football Playoff semifinal in the Orange Bowl. 34-11 was the final score there. So both teams are 13-1. Alabama's one loss on the season is to Texas A&M back in the middle of the regular season, and of course for Georgia, once again, that is to Alabama just a few weeks ago. Game will be on Monday, January 10th in Indianapolis, Indiana. Kickoff time, 8 p.m. Eastern. Spreads going Georgia here by 3. That is your opening spreads. That could change over the course of the week here, but Georgia is favored heading into this matchup. Over-under 52.5, and your FPI is going Georgia as well, 58%. So Georgia's actually heavily favored there in the FPI. But the spread is keeping it pretty close between these two teams. Series history, Alabama leads at 42-25. Win streak is Alabama by 7. Last time Georgia beat Alabama was 2007, so it's been a long time, just about 15 years since we last saw Georgia beat Alabama. Here's your stat comparison for this game. Alabama 41 points a game, 20 points allowed. So you got a very high-powered offense here with Alabama. I mean, Bryce Young, he's the Heisman winner, and for a very reason. I mean, this is a football team that's got so much talent offensively. And by the way, this is a young football team offensively too. I mean, this is a football team that heading into this 2021 season, there were some questions here because this is a football team that lost a tremendous amount of talent after the 2020 season. But Bryce Young, he has risen to the occasion. He's had a great year, 4,500 yards, 46 touchdowns, 5 picks. I mean, those are basically freshman year stats out of Bryce Young. This is a first-year starting quarterback here with Bryce Young, and he's putting up insane stats to say the least. And of course, you got Brian Robinson, who's had a great year too, 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns. He had to fill in the shoes of Najee Harris from last season, and he has done just fine. He's done very well for the Crimson Tide this season. And of course, Jamison Williams, can't forget about him. 1,500 yards of receiving on the season, 15 touchdowns. I mean, this offense is phenomenal, and they've got a tremendous amount of talent. And by the way, this Alabama team, they are very young, and they made it to the College Football Playoff championship game in a season where this team is pretty inexperienced. So just imagine, this Alabama team is returning a lot of players going into next season. Alabama, this team might be in this very same game for the next 2 or 3 seasons. I mean, this is a tremendous team here with Alabama, and it's incredible to see what Nick Saban has done here with the Crimson Tide over the past decade or so. But yeah, for pass yards a game, 336, 158 rush yards a game, and then for yards led, he got 223 passing, 82 for rushing. So rush defense has been phenomenal this season for the Crimson Tide. Pass defense has been okay. I mean, that's an average stat line there for the pass yards allowed, but otherwise rush defense has been good this season. As for Georgia, 39 points a game, 9 points allowed. You got 253 pass yards a game, 194 rush yards. And then for yards allowed, you got 172 passing, 81 for rushing. So Georgia here, extremely high-powered defense. That is what's been really keeping this team winning games by huge margins. I mean, their offense has improved tremendously. I mean, don't sleep on this offense by a single bit. But their defense, it's been one of the best defenses that I can remember in the college football or in this modern era here. 9 points allowed per game. That is over the course of 14 games in a college football season. This team has averaged only allowing 9 points a game, which is incredible. That's a stat line that is extremely rare. You hardly ever see that, and Georgia's defense has just been really, really tough to move the ball against. And for Alabama, that's going to be a tremendous challenge. This is a team that put up 41 against Georgia back in the SEC championship game, but I have a feeling it won't be quite as easy this time around for the Crimson Tide. But Bryce Young, phenomenal quarterback. Stetson Bennett, he's had a good season as well. Don't forget about him. I mean, 2,600 yards, 27 touchdowns, 7 picks. He's had a good season here. I wouldn't say he's quite on the same level as Bryce Young by any means, but I mean, this offense, they've gotten by just fine. Of course, you got Bowers as well, the top end receiving on this football team. He's only a tight end with 840 yards and 12 touchdowns. I mean, that's incredible stats for a tight end. So, major impact player there as well with Brock Bowers. Here's some recent matchups here. Alabama, of course, beat Cincinnati 27-6, beat Georgia in your SEC title game 41-24. Did beat Auburn 24-22 in 4 overtimes. That was back a long time ago, though, and it feels like forever since that game because Alabama has just been so dominant the past couple of games that they've played here in the postseason against Georgia and Cincinnati. They beat Arkansas 42-35, also beat New Mexico State way back when 59-3. As for Georgia, beat Michigan 34-11. Quite a game there for Georgia, beating Michigan. I mean, the Wolverines, of course, were on fire heading into that college football playoff semifinal, and many people were predicting Michigan to win that game against Georgia. And I mean, rightfully so, looking at how they were going into that semifinal game. I mean, this was a football team that had just beaten Ohio State by 15, finally beat the Buckeyes. They had absolutely destroyed Maryland back in the second to last week of the regular season. They also beat up Iowa 42-3 in the Big Ten Championship. So Michigan, they were on fire heading into that matchup, and Georgia shut them down big time, got the win 34-11, and they won handily in that game. And I think that just kind of goes to show here, seeing both these teams dominate their college football playoff semifinals as they did. Both teams belong to be in those games, and they both. I think we've got Georgia and Alabama. Those two, I mean, these two football teams are easily the best two teams in the nation by significant margins based off of what we saw in the college football playoff semifinals. Some key points here: Alabama 13-1. Both teams are 13-1. Crimson Tide in the postseason is just brutal to beat. We've seen that so many times in the past, and this Crimson Tide team, I mean, more experienced than anybody, and it's not even close in the postseason and in the college football playoff. Nick Saban, just a phenomenal head coach. I think he deserves a lot of credit for what he's done with Alabama, and it's insane seeing what he's been able to do with this program, and Alabama continues to be the big dynasty of college football, and I mean, there's no surprise really seeing the Crimson Tide here in the national championship once again. The Bryce Young, Jamison Williams duo is only getting better. Definitely a tough duo to beat there in Georgia. They're going to have a challenge there. That was a tough thing to stop in the SEC title game for the Bulldogs. So that's going to be a huge thing to improve. And of course, beat Georgia. Alabama did beat Georgia by 17 in the SEC title game. So they've beaten Georgia before, but once again, I don't expect it to be anywhere near as easy this time around for Alabama to beat Georgia by 17 points. I just don't see it happening. But for the Bulldogs defensively, have been dominant all season long. This defense, I mean, their offense is good too, but their defense is really the highlight and really where this football team shines. Stetson Bennett continues to be on the rise, only improving. And other than the SEC championship game, I mean, if you look at this schedule for Georgia, they have been the most dominant team in the nation. I mean, Alabama's a good football team, and they both have the same record, but Georgia's got more style points based off of how they played down the stretch. I mean, this football team hardly even played a close game in the regular season. They dominated so much. And so that SEC title game, that's a huge outlier on their schedule there because, I mean, Alabama, of course, they're a phenomenal team, but, I mean, they've dominated every single game otherwise. Like, they dominated Michigan, beat up Auburn, Arkansas shut out them 37-0 back in early October, and beat Kentucky big time as well. So, I mean, Georgia, the most dominant team in the nation, I would say, in this season, other than, of course, that Alabama game. But that being said, let's get to the prediction here for your national championship game, Alabama and Georgia. All comes down to this. I'm going to go Bulldogs. 27-24 is my predicted final score, and this is a tough one to predict. It's going to be a great game. I don't expect it to be a lopsided game at all. I think we see both teams fight each other down the stretch, and it's going to be very close. But in the end, Georgia is the better football team, I do think, and I think that's going to be a different result than what we saw in that SEC title game. I'm going to go Georgia 27-24 by 3. It's going to be a lower scoring game. I don't expect it. I mean, for both teams with high-powered offenses, I just don't. I mean, especially with Georgia's defense, I think they play much better in this game. They learn from their mistakes that they had in the SEC title game, and they redeem themselves here. They get the win 27-24. Probability 55% towards the Bulldogs. So once again, easily, I mean, both teams could easily win this game. Wouldn't be surprised one bit if you told me Alabama was going to win this game, and I totally would respect that opinion. But I mean, over under here 52.5. I'm going to take the under for this game just barely. I do think we see the teams go under on this game, but certainly once again, both teams with excellent offenses, we could see this game go over as well. But I'm going to take the under for this game and Alabama to cover the spread as of right now. But once again, final score 27 for Georgia, 24 for Alabama. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this game, and I appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.